as you know, we've had a few natural disasters and emergencies, and certainly some man-made ones too that we've been dealing with, which is why we've had a special session, and now we're in a regular session. Certainly looking forward to a likely second special session. But tremendous challenges around principally the budget deficit that we inherited, the largest in our state's history at $1 billion for the current year and $2 billion for next year. You know, thanks to a lot of good work, both on the part of the administration, but also with the legislature, the deficit for next year is now at $600 million. That's through a combination of revenue that was raised, but also cuts and some efficiencies and savings that we're going to be able to realize principally around the Medicaid expansion, which we estimate in the first year will save upwards of $180 million. But the challenge is the $600 million in state general fund deficit is still a very big number for a state the size of Louisiana. And having spent a number of hours going through the budget with Jay Darden and others in the administration, I can tell you that from my perspective, it is not possible to adequately fund what we all believe to be priorities in this state at $600 million in terms of the state general fund deficit for next year, which is why absent a very large but pleasant surprise at the REC meeting on May the 12th, I expect that there will be a second special session in June so that we can achieve some stability in our budget before the start of the new fiscal year on July 1st. I say surprised because reading the tea leaves, there's nothing that suggests that the REC will recognize enough additional revenue to obviate the need for a second special session. No one would be happier than me, however, if a second special session was not necessary or proved not to be necessary. Now, as a result, right now, we are talking about a budget for next year that has substantial cuts, cuts beyond what I believe are appropriate. And they span across the budget, and they relate to higher education, which is particularly problematic because for 8 years, Louisiana led the nation in terms of cuts to state support for higher education. But it also relates to TOPS. It relates to the Department of Health and Hospitals, and currently there are 4 safety net hospitals that are not in the budget, although we continue to work with all of our private partners trying to negotiate better deals for the state for next year, increased savings in those deals, but keeping them open, and of course that's going to depend upon a little additional, not a little, about $70 million additional revenue just for the hospitals for next year to get to those 4 that currently are not open. But there's also obviously a TOPS cut of about $183 million, and then about $50 million year-to-year reduction on K through 12 education. This is not the budget I wanted to present, as you all know. It's not the budget I want to see implemented on July the 1st, but it is the budget that I'm obligated to produce under the Constitution that requires a balanced budget. And obviously we took the revenue that was recognized, forecasted by REC. That's the amount of money that we put into our budget. The good news is the budget is a very honest budget in terms of the fact that there are no budget sweeps, fund sweeps. There are no one-time revenues lined up against recurring expenditures. We did not raid the Transportation Trust Fund, but the beauty of the budget really stops about there. There's a lot of things about that budget, obviously, that are very, very problematic. And having spent hours going through that, I know the challenges that the legislature is going to have as well, trying to make the budget a better document than it is, because every time you want to shore up your investment in one place, you actually decrease it somewhere else, and those are also critical items for our state. So with that, and I will tell you that as we're meeting, I believe the House Appropriations Committee is still in session, and they are considering amendments, I think, for the first time to the budget that I presented to them. So you probably will know more, because if you're watching your phones and seeing what's going on in the committee room, then I will know. But if I can answer a question, I will try to do that. I just want to, before I take questions, I do want to tell everybody that I still remain very optimistic about the future of our state. I know that our best days are ahead of us, but it is a real challenge. And I am absolutely determined to fix the state, to put us on a more stable path with predictable and stable revenue that is collected fairly and that is sufficient in order to fund the critical priorities of the state of Louisiana. We are not there today, and we've got some work to do to get there. But I am convinced that we are going to make that happen. It's just, we didn't get into this problem overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight, and it's not going to be painless. And in fact, we've already cut more than $230 million state general fund in the current fiscal year since I've become governor. I mean, there's nothing easy or painless about it, but I believe a balanced approach, one that relies on both revenue and cuts, is the way to go. But people don't like either, and I fully understand that. But those are the only two options you have to deal with when you're looking at a deficit and you have an obligation to balance the budget. And so, you know, we're going to keep working very hard. We're going to keep talking to all of the members of the legislature, both in the House and the Senate, Republicans and Democrats, in order to and the two independents, I shouldn't leave them out, in order to fashion a budget that serves the state of Louisiana well. At present, I am convinced that can only be done with a second special session where we look at some additional revenue opportunities.